The slap echoed through the marble hallway of Westbrook Academy like a gunshot. Every student froze. Every teacher stopped mid-sentence. Every breath in that building seemed to hold itself hostage. 16-year-old Maya Johnson stood in the center of the school's grand entrance. Her cheek burning crimson, her scholarship application scattered across the polished floor like fallen leaves. Standing before her, with his hand still raised and a smirk carved into his privileged face, was Brandon Whitmore III, the son of the wealthiest man in the entire state. "That's what happens," Brandon announced loudly, making sure everyone could hear, "when the maid's daughter thinks she belongs in my school." Maya's mother, Grace Johnson, had just arrived to drop off her daughter's forgotten lunch. She stood frozen at the entrance, still wearing her cleaning uniform from her morning shift at the Whitmore estate, the blue apron, the sensible shoes, the name tag that read, "Staff." Grace watched her daughter's humiliation unfold, and something inside her shattered into 1,000 pieces. But what nobody in that hallway knew, what Brandon Whitmore III would soon discover to his absolute horror, was that Grace Johnson was not just a maid. And the principal, watching from his office window, he wasn't just a principal either. What happened next in that office would change everything. It would expose lies that had been buried for 18 years. It would reveal connections that spanned continents. And it would teach Brandon Whitmore III a lesson about respect that his billions could never buy back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to understand how a simple cleaning woman and her daughter ended up in the crosshairs of the most powerful family in Westbrook, and how an ordinary Tuesday morning became the day that karma finally came to collect its debt. Grace Johnson woke up at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before her alarm, just as she had done every single day for the past 16 years. She lay still in the darkness of her small bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of their modest apartment, the hum of the old refrigerator, the distant rumble of early morning traffic, and the soft breathing of her daughter Maya in the room next door. 16 years. That's how long Grace had been playing this role. 16 years of early mornings, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and being invisible. 16 years of watching wealthy people look right through her as if she were made of glass. 16 years of biting her tongue, lowering her eyes, and saying, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, sir," to people who weren't fit to shine her shoes. But Grace had her reasons. Powerful reasons. Reasons that kept her anchored to this life of pretense when everything inside her screamed to break free. Maya. Everything was for Maya. Grace rose quietly and padded to her daughter's doorway, watching the 17-year-old sleep. Maya had Grace's high cheekbones, her father's determined jaw, and a mind so brilliant it sometimes frightened Grace. Top of her class. National Science Fair finalist. Full scholarship candidate for 3 Ivy League universities. Maya was going to change the world. Grace was sure of it. She just needed to keep them both safe long enough for that to happen. Grace showered, dressed in her uniform, and made breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice. She set Maya's plate on their small kitchen table, right next to the acceptance letter that had arrived yesterday from Westbrook Academy's advanced STEM program. Maya had earned a full scholarship, one of only 5 awarded nationwide. Grace allowed herself a small smile. Her daughter was going to be the first in their family, the first in several generations, though Maya didn't know that history, to graduate from a prestigious academy, and not because of money or connections, but because of pure, undeniable brilliance. "Morning, Mama," Maya said, emerging from her room with sleepy eyes and a textbook already in her hand. Thermodynamics, light reading, apparently. "Morning, baby. Eat up. Big day." Maya grinned, and Grace's heart swelled. That smile. It was exactly like her father's, the father Maya had never met, the father Maya believed had died before she was born. Another lie. Another secret Grace carried like stones in her pockets. "First day at the new school," Maya said, between bites. "Nervous doesn't begin to cover it. You earned your place there," Grace said firmly. "Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Not the teachers. Not the students. Not anyone. Maya nodded. But Grace saw the flicker of doubt in her daughter's eyes. Westbrook Academy wasn't just any school. It was the school. The one where senators sent their children. The one where tech billionaires and hedge fund managers paid $85,000 a year in tuition. The one where everyone arrived in luxury cars driven by personal chauffeurs. Maya would arrive on the city bus. "I know who I am, Mama," Maya said softly. "I know where I come from. That's my strength, not my weakness." Grace blinked back tears. When had her little girl become so wise? "You know," Grace said carefully, "I have to work this afternoon at the Whitmore estate. If you need anything, if you forget something, just call me. I'll find a way to bring it to you." Maya's expression shifted slightly. "The Whitmores. They have a son at Westbrook, don't they? Brandon? Something?" Grace's jaw tightened. "Brandon Whitmore III. Yes. Stay away from him. Baby. He's not a good person." "You've met him?" Grace had more than met him. She'd spent the last 3 years cleaning up after his parties, his tantrums, his messes. She'd watched him scream at staff members until they cried. She'd seen him throw a glass of wine at a catering server because it was 2 degrees too warm. She'd heard him make jokes about the help that made her blood boil. But she couldn't tell Maya any of that, not without revealing too much. "Just trust me," Grace said. "Stay away from him." Maya Johnson arrived at Westbrook Academy at exactly 7:45 a.m. She stood at the iron gates, staring up at the Gothic architecture, the immaculate grounds, the students flowing past her in waves of designer clothing and easy confidence. Her own outfit, carefully selected from the clearance rack at Target, suddenly felt thin and cheap. But Maya lifted her chin. She'd earned this. Every late night studying, every sacrificed weekend, every moment of pushing herself beyond what she thought possible. She'd earned her place here. "Excuse me," a voice sneered behind her. "You're blocking the entrance." Maya stepped aside, and a black Mercedes glided through the gates. Through the tinted window, she caught a glimpse of perfectly styled blonde hair and cold blue eyes. Brandon Whitmore III had arrived. Maya watched the car pull up to the main entrance, where Brandon emerged like royalty greeting his subjects. Students gravitated toward him, immediately laughing at his jokes before he'd even made them, nodding at his opinions before he'd finished expressing them. This was his kingdom. Maya took a deep breath and walked toward the administration building to collect her schedule and lock her assignment. She'd been assigned a student guide, someone to show her around and help her adjust. Maya Johnson? A tall girl with bright red hair bounded toward her. "Hi, I'm Casey Fitzgerald. I'm supposed to show you around. Welcome to Westbrook." Casey's warmth was genuine, and Maya felt some of her tension ease. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. "Honey, you have no idea. Let me give you the survival guide. The cafeteria pasta is actually decent. Never use the third-floor bathroom's weird echo. And whatever you do, stay off Brandon Whitmore's radar." Maya's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Casey's smile faded. "Brandon doesn't like new people, especially scholarship students. He thinks they lower the school's standards." She made air quotes. "Last year, he got 3 scholarship kids to quit before winter break. Made their lives so miserable, they just gave up. And the school lets him?" Casey's expression grew complicated. "His father donated the new science wing, and the library, and the athletic complex. Brandon could probably set fire to the principal's car and get a warning." Maya felt anger kindle in her chest. "That's not right." "No," Casey agreed. "It's not. But it's how things work here. The Whitmores basically own this school, and Brandon knows it." Maya survived her first 3 periods without incident. Her advanced physics class was exhilarating finally, students who could keep up with her thinking. Her literature seminar was engaging. Her calculus teacher actually seemed impressed by her grasp of complex equations. Maybe, just maybe, She could do this. Then came lunch. Maya collected her tray. The scholarship student meal plan offered fewer choices than the premium plan, but the food was decent and looked for a place to sit. Casey had promised to save her a seat, but the cafeteria was packed, and Maya couldn't spot that red hair anywhere. "Hey," a voice called out. "New girl, over here." Maya looked toward a table near the windows, where a group of well-dressed students was waving at her. She felt a flutter of hope. Maybe Westbrook wasn't as unwelcoming as Casey had warned. She walked toward the table, tray in hand, smile forming on her face. "Is this seat taken?" she asked politely. The group exchanged glances. Then they burst out laughing. "Yeah," one of them snickered. "It's taken. By someone who actually belongs here." Maya's smile froze. "We were just curious," another girl added, examining her manicured nails with deliberate boredom. "We wanted to see the scholarship girl up close. You know, like at a zoo." The table erupted in laughter again. Maya's hands trembled, making her tray rattle slightly. She wanted to respond, wanted to deliver some cutting comeback that would put them in their place. But the words wouldn't come. All she could think about was getting away from their mocking eyes. "What's happening here?" Brandon Whitmore III appeared beside the table, flanked by two of his closest followers. His gaze swept over Maya with cold assessment. "Brandon," the first girl's voice turned syrupy. "We were just meeting the new scholarship student." "Mayan? Margot?" "Maya," Maya said quietly. Brandon's eyes narrowed. "Maya? Maya Johnson?" Maya nodded, surprised he knew her name. "Your mother works at my house," Brandon said, and his tone made the statement sound like an accusation. "She cleans my bathroom, scrubs my toilets." The table went silent. Every student within earshot turned to watch. Maya's chin lifted. "My mother works hard and earns an honest living. That's nothing to be ashamed of." Something flickered in Brandon's eyes. Not respect, something closer to irritation. People didn't talk back to Brandon Whitmore III. They didn't defend themselves. They cowered and apologized and got out of his way. "Hard work," Brandon repeated slowly, tasting the words like they were foreign to him. "I suppose you'd know about that. You people usually do." The implication hung in the air, ugly and unmistakable. "What's that supposed to mean?" Maya's voice was steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. Brandon smiled, the kind of smile that held no warmth at all. "It means, know your place, scholarship girl. You might have fooled the admissions committee, but you don't belong here, and everyone knows it." He turned and walked away, his entourage following like planets orbiting their sun. The students at the table watched Maya with a mixture of pity and contempt. Maya stood frozen for a long moment. Then, very carefully, she set down her tray, turned, and walked out of the cafeteria. She didn't run. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. But once she reached the bathroom, once she was safely locked in a stall, she let the tears fall. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "How's your first day, baby? Making friends?" Maya stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "It's great, Mama. Really great." Another lie. Another secret. It seemed the Johnson women were cursed to carry them. The incident in the cafeteria was only the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Brandon Whitmore III made it his personal mission to destroy Maya Johnson. It started small, accidental bumps in the hallway that sent her books flying, whispered comments just loud enough for her to hear, study guides mysteriously missing from her locker. Then, it escalated. Someone hacked into the school's email system and sent a message from Maya's account to every student. "I don't deserve to be here. I only got in because of affirmative action." Real students earned their spots. Maya spent 3 days trying to prove she hadn't sent it. The administration believed her, but the damage was done. Students who might have been friendly now avoided her. Casey Fitzgerald remained loyal. but even she seemed nervous about being seen with Maya too often. "He's not going to stop," Casey said one afternoon, as they studied in a quiet corner of the library. "Brandon, I mean. Once he targets someone, he doesn't let go until they break." "I won't break," Maya said firmly. Casey looked at her with something like admiration and something like fear. "I believe you. But Maya, you don't know what he's capable of. Last year, there was this kid, Marcus, scholarship student, like you, brilliant musician. Brandon made his life so miserable that Marcus, he had a breakdown, had to leave school. I heard he's still in therapy." Maya felt cold. "The school didn't do anything?" "The school did an investigation. Found no conclusive evidence of wrongdoing. Brandon's father made a very generous donation shortly after. Coincidence, I'm sure." Maya clenched her fists under the table. This wasn't right. None of this was right. But what could she do? She was one scholarship student against the son of a billionaire. The system was rigged against her before she even started. That night, Maya came home to find her mother at the kitchen table, still in her uniform, looking exhausted. "Long day?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from her. Grace nodded. "Mrs. Whitmore hosted a luncheon. 40 guests. I served, cleaned up, then stayed late to polish the silverware. Twice. Apparently, I missed a spot the first time." Maya's jaw tightened. "Mama, you shouldn't have to what?" Grace cut her off. "But, not unkindly. Work? Take orders from people who don't respect me? That's life, baby. That's how the world works. It doesn't have to be." Grace studied her daughter's face. She saw the anger there, the frustration, the fierce determination. She saw so much of herself at that age, before life had taught her to hide, to wait, to plan. "Tell me about school," Grace said softly. Maya hesitated. She'd been careful to hide the worst of it from her mother. Grace had enough to worry about without adding her daughter's troubles to the list. "It's fine," Maya said. "Challenging. The coursework is intense. And the students? They're adjusting to me." Grace reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Maya, I know you're trying to protect me, but I'm your mother. I can tell when something's wrong." The dam broke. Maya told her everything. The lunch table incident, the emails, the daily harassment, the whispers and the stares, and the constant feeling of being watched, hunted, targeted. Grace listened in silence, her face growing darker with each revelation. "Brandon Whitmore," Grace finally said, and her voice had a quality Maya had never heard before. "Cold. Dangerous. He's the one leading this?" Maya nodded. Grace was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her words were careful, measured. "Tomorrow, I want you to make sure you have everything you need for school. Double-check your bag. Don't forget anything." "Why?" "Because I won't be able to bring you anything. I've been asked to work the morning shift at the Whitmore estate instead of the afternoon." Maya nodded, not understanding the significance. But she would soon. Maya woke up the next morning feeling oddly confident. She'd survived 2 weeks at Westbrook Academy. She'd endured Brandon's campaign of cruelty without breaking. Maybe, just maybe, she could outlast him. She gathered her things carefully, remembering her mother's warning. Textbooks, notebooks, calculator, laptop, lunch money, everything accounted for. Except, as she discovered during second period, she'd somehow left her research binder at home. The one containing her entire advanced biology project, due that afternoon. Maya panicked. The project was worth 30% of her grade. Without it, she'd fail. And if she failed, she could lose her scholarship. She pulled out her phone and texted her mother. "Mama, I forgot my bio binder. It's on my desk. Is there any way you can bring it to me?" The response came 5 minutes later. "I'm at the Whitmore estate for another hour. I'll try to bring it during lunch. Stay strong, baby. Maya exhaled. It would be tight, but if her mother could get there by noon, she'd have time to make it to her 1 p.m. biology class. What Maya didn't know was that the missing binder wasn't an accident. Someone had removed it from her bag when she wasn't looking. Someone who wanted her mother to come to Westbrook Academy in her maid's uniform, in the middle of the day, where everyone could see. Brandon Whitmore III was about to spring his trap. The arrival of Grace. Grace Johnson arrived at Westbrook Academy at 12:15 p.m. She was still wearing her uniform. There hadn't been time to change. Her blue apron was slightly stained from the morning's work. Her comfortable shoes were scuffed. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail rather than the elegant styles she'd worn in another life. She walked through the grand entrance with her head held high, Maya's binder clutched to her chest. Students parted around her, their eyes tracking the anomaly in their midst. A cleaning woman in Westbrook Academy. How strange. How out of place. Grace ignored them. She'd learned long ago that the opinions of small-minded people meant nothing. She made her way to the administration office to sign in as a visitor. "Can I help you?" The receptionist looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "I'm here to see my daughter, Maya Johnson. I have her school materials." Maya Johnson. The receptionist typed slowly, deliberately. "Scholarship student?" "Yes. I'll page her." The receptionist's tone made it clear. She considered this an inconvenience. Grace waited. 1 minute. 2. 5. Finally, Maya appeared in the doorway, looking relieved and slightly embarrassed. "Mama! Thank you so much. You saved me." "Of course, baby." Grace handed over the binder, then pulled her daughter into a brief hug. "I have to get back to work. You okay?" "I'm fine. Better now." Grace turned to leave and found her path blocked. Brandon Whitmore III stood in the doorway of the administration office, flanked by his ever-present entourage. Behind them, a crowd of students had gathered, phones already out, recording. "Well, well, well," Brandon said loudly, his voice carrying across the space. Maya stepped in front of her mother. "Walk away, Brandon." "Or what?" Brandon laughed. "You'll report me?" "Please. My father owns this school. He owns this whole town, and apparently he owns your mother too." Grace placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "It's okay, baby. Let me handle this." She stepped forward, facing Brandon directly. There was something in her posture that made several students lower their phones, something that didn't match the humble uniform she wore. "Mr. Whitmore," Grace said calmly, "I'm going to give you one chance. One chance to apologize to my daughter. Walk away. And pretend this never happened. I suggest you take it." Brandon's eyes widened in disbelief. Then he laughed a harsh, ugly sound. "Did the maid just threaten me?" He looked around at his friends, inviting them to share his amusement. "That's hilarious. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is?" "I know exactly who your father is," Grace said. And something in her tone made Brandon's laughter die. "Really? Then you know he could have you fired with a phone call. You'd never work in this town again. You'd lose your apartment. Your daughter would lose her scholarship. You'd have nothing." Grace smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Mr. Whitmore, you have no idea who you're talking to. I'm talking to the woman who scrubs my toilets." Brandon's voice rose. "I'm talking to a nobody. A nothing. Is there a problem here?" The crowd parted. Principal Thomas Wright stepped through, his expression unreadable. Brandon's demeanor shifted instantly, transforming from aggressor to aggrieved party. "Principal Wright, thank God. This woman was threatening me. Her daughter, too. I think they should both be removed from campus immediately." Principal Wright's gaze moved from Brandon to Grace to Maya. Something passed between the adults, a flicker of recognition that Maya didn't understand. Mrs. Johnson, Principal Wright said formally. Mr. Whitmore. Miss Johnson. I think we should continue this conversation in my office. Privately. Principal Thomas Wright's office was exactly what you'd expect from the head of an elite academy: mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with degrees and commendations. What you wouldn't expect was the photograph hidden in his desk drawer. The one he'd been looking at more and more often these past few weeks. The one showing 3 people at a graduation ceremony nearly 2 decades ago. One of them was him, 20 years younger. One of them was Grace Johnson. And the third, well, that was the secret that had been eating at him for 18 years. Please. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs arranged before his desk. Brandon dropped into a seat with entitled ease. Grace lowered herself gracefully into another. Maya remained standing by the door, uncertain. Maya, Principal Wright said gently. Please, sit. She sat. Now, the principal continued, folding his hands on his desk. I witnessed most of that confrontation in the hallway. Mr. Whitmore, would you like to tell me your version of events? Brandon launched into his rehearsed narrative: how Grace had threatened him, how Maya had been confrontational for weeks, how he was the real victim of harassment by scholarship students who didn't understand their place. Principal Wright listened without expression. When Brandon finished, the principal turned to Maya. Miss Johnson, your version? Maya spoke clearly and directly. She described the weeks of harassment, the hacked emails, the social isolation, the daily cruelty that Brandon and his friends had inflicted. Brandon interrupted several times to deny, deflect, and accuse. Finally, Principal Wright held up a hand. I've heard enough. Brandon smiled triumphantly. So, you'll expel them? The maid and her daughter? Principal Wright's gaze could have frozen fire. No, Mr. Whitmore. I won't be expelling anyone. What I will be doing is calling your father. Brandon's smile flickered, but held. Go ahead. My father will tell you exactly what I told you. These people are trash. They don't belong here. Actually, Principal Wright said slowly, I wasn't planning to call your father to discuss you. Confusion crossed Brandon's face. Then why? Principal Wright reached into his desk drawer and withdrew the photograph. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at Grace. It's time, he said quietly. Isn't it? Grace met his eyes. 18 years of secrets. 18 years of hiding. 18 years of waiting for the right moment. Yes, she said. It's time. Brandon looked between them, his privileged certainty beginning to crack. What are you talking about? What's time? Principal Wright set the photograph on his desk, facing Brandon and Maya. The image showed 3 graduates in caps and gowns, smiling at the camera. Young, hopeful, full of promise. Do you recognize anyone in this photo, Mr. Whitmore? Brandon leaned forward, squinting. That's my father, isn't it? He looks young. Yes. That's Marcus Whitmore I. Your grandfather. This photo was taken at his business school graduation 42 years ago. Principal Wright tapped the image. And these other 2 people, do you recognize them? Brandon studied the photo more closely. The woman on the right looked vaguely familiar. And the man on the left? That's you, Brandon said, surprised. You went to school with my grandfather? We were roommates, Principal Wright confirmed. Best friends, actually. Your grandfather and I built our first businesses together. I was there when Whitmore Industries was founded. Brandon's expression shifted to calculation. If you're friends with my grandfather, why are you? I'm not finished. Principal Wright's voice was sharp. Look at the woman in the photo. Look closely. Brandon looked. Maya looked. And Maya's breath caught in her throat. The woman in the photo, standing between the 2 men, was young and beautiful and radiantly happy. She was black. She had high cheekbones, a determined jaw, and a smile that could light up a room. She looked exactly like Grace Johnson. Because she was Grace Johnson. Mama? Maya's voice cracked. Grace reached over and took her daughter's hand. I know, baby. I know I have a lot of explaining to do. Brandon was still trying to process. Wait. The maid went to business school with my grandfather? So what? That doesn't change anything. She's still just Mr. Whitmore. Principal Wright's voice was ice. The woman you've been calling the maid graduated top of her class from the most prestigious business school in the country. She was valedictorian. She started 3 companies before she turned 30. She was on track to be one of the most successful entrepreneurs in American history. Brandon's face paled. That's impossible. She cleans our house. She scrubs our toilets. She's been hiding, Principal Wright said. For 18 years, she's been hiding. And now I think it's time you learn why. He opened his desk drawer again and pulled out a thick file. This is going to be a very long conversation, Mr. Whitmore. And by the end of it, you're going to understand just how badly you've miscalculated. Grace squeezed Maya's hand. Maya stared at her mother, this stranger wearing her mother's face. And Brandon Whitmore III, for the first time in his privileged life, felt the cold grip of fear. What secret has Grace been hiding for 18 years? What does Principal Wright know about the Whitmore family? And what will Brandon do when he discovers the truth about the woman he's tormented? Brandon Whitmore III had never known fear. He'd grown up in a 30,000-square-foot mansion. He'd worn suits that cost more than most people's cars. He'd attended parties where senators and celebrities competed for his attention. He'd never been told no. He'd never been denied. He'd never faced a consequence in his entire 17 years of existence. But right now, sitting in Principal Wright's office, watching the man pull file after file from his desk drawer, Brandon felt something cold slithering through his stomach. The maid sat across from him, her posture transformed. Gone was the humble servant who cleaned his toilets. In her place was a woman whose eyes held secrets sharp enough to cut. And her daughter, that scholarship girl, Maya, sat frozen, staring at her mother like she'd never seen her before. Before we begin, Principal Wright said, his voice carrying the weight of 18 years of silence, I need to make something clear. What I'm about to reveal cannot leave this room. Not yet. Do you understand, Mr. Whitmore? Brandon wanted to laugh, wanted to reclaim his authority, wanted to remind this principal that his father could have him fired with a single phone call. But something in Thomas Wright's eyes stopped him. Your grandfather, the principal continued, Marcus Whitmore III, was my best friend. We were inseparable during business school. He was brilliant, charismatic, driven, and he was in love with Grace. Brandon's head snapped toward the maid, toward Grace. What? We were engaged, Grace said quietly. Your grandfather and I. For 2 years. Maya made a small sound. Mama. I know, baby. I know. Grace didn't look at her daughter. Her gaze was fixed on some point in the past, on memories she'd buried but never forgotten. Marcus was everything to me. We had plans. We were going to change the world together. This is insane, Brandon sputtered. My grandfather would never. He was married to my grandmother for 40 years. He loved her. Your grandmother came later, Principal Wright interrupted. After Grace disappeared. Grace's composure cracked for just a moment. A flash of old pain crossed her face before she controlled it. What do you mean, disappeared? Maya asked. And that's when the story began. The real story. The one that had been hidden for nearly 2 decades. The one that would change everything. Grace Johnson was born into extraordinary circumstances, though you'd never know it to look at her. Her father, William Ellis Johnson, was an inventor. A genius, really. He held over 200 patents in renewable energy technology. His innovations in solar panel efficiency were decades ahead of their time. His work in battery storage had the potential to revolutionize the entire energy industry. But William was also black, and in the world he operated in, That meant doors were often closed before he could knock. So William did something clever, something that would eventually cost his daughter everything. He created a silent partnership with a young, ambitious business student who had connections, capital, and most importantly, the right skin color to walk through those closed doors. That student was Marcus Whitmore I. Your grandfather didn't build Whitmore Industries alone, Grace said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was revealing. He built it on my father's technology. Every patent, every innovation, every $1 billion your family has earned came from William Ellis Johnson's mind. Brandon's face went white. That's a lie. It's documented. Principal Wright slid a folder across the desk. These are the original partnership agreements. Your grandfather and William were 50-50 partners. But when it came time to go public, when it came time for Whitmore Industries to become what it is today, William's name was erased. The official story, Grace continued, is that my father sold his stake, that he wanted to pursue other opportunities, that he signed over his shares willingly. He didn't? Maya asked. Grace shook her head slowly. My father died 3 weeks before that paperwork was filed. Heart attack, officially, but there was an investigation that was quietly shut down when certain people applied pressure. The implication hung in the air, ugly and unavoidable. Brandon's voice came out strangled. You're saying my grandfather? You're saying he killed your father? I'm saying my father died. And 2 weeks later, someone forged his signature on documents that transferred his entire life's work to Marcus Whitmore. Grace's eyes burned with decades of suppressed anger. I'm saying I was 24 years old, engaged to the man I loved, and I discovered that his family had stolen everything from mine. Grace closed her eyes, and the memories flooded back. She was 24 again, standing in the grand foyer of the Whitmore mansion, confronting her fiancé with evidence she'd spent months gathering. These documents prove it, Marcus, young Grace said, her hands trembling as she held out the folder. These prove that your father orchestrated everything. The forged signatures, the manipulated records, everything. Marcus Whitmore, I stared at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, nothing like the warm, loving man she thought she knew. Grace, he said slowly, you need to think very carefully about what you're doing. I've thought about it. For months, I've done nothing but think about it. Tears streamed down her face. My father is dead, Marcus, and your family killed him. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Proof can be discredited. Marcus took a step toward her. Documents can be lost. Investigators can be persuaded. People who dig too deep can have accidents. Grace felt the blood drain from her face. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. Marcus's voice was gentle, almost kind, which made it so much worse. I love you, Grace. I've always loved you, but you need to understand something. Whitmore Industries is bigger than us, bigger than your father, bigger than justice. If you pursue this, you will be destroyed. And if I don't? Marcus smiled. That same charming smile that had won her heart. Then, we continue as planned. We get married. You become Mrs. Whitmore. You have access to resources, influence, power beyond anything you've ever imagined. And in time, you learn to forget. Forget that your family murdered my father? Marcus didn't flinch. Forget that you ever believed they did. Grace stared at the man she loved, the man she'd planned to spend her life with, the man who was asking her to bury her father's memory along with her father's body. I need time, she whispered. Time to think. Take all the time you need. Marcus kissed her forehead. But Grace, darling, don't take too long. My patience, while considerable, is not infinite. That night, Grace ran. She emptied her bank accounts, packed a single bag, and disappeared into the night. She changed her name, changed her appearance, changed everything about herself that could be traced. But there's something else, Grace said, returning to the present. Something I never told anyone. Not even Thomas. Principal Wright looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Grace took a deep breath. When I left Marcus, I didn't know I was pregnant. Maya's breath caught. I discovered it 2 weeks after I disappeared. I was alone, terrified, and carrying the child of the man whose family had destroyed mine. Maya, Brandon said slowly. The pieces falling into place. Maya is Marcus Whitmore, I's daughter. Grace turned to face her child fully. Your grandfather is Maya's father. You and Maya. Your family, Brandon. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya sat frozen, her mind refusing to process what she'd just heard. Her father wasn't dead. Her father wasn't some anonymous figure from her mother's past. Her father was Marcus Whitmore I, one of the wealthiest men in the country. And Brandon, who had tormented her, humiliated her, tried to destroy her, was her nephew. That's impossible, Brandon said, but his voice had lost all its conviction. It's true. Principal Wright pushed forward another document. I've suspected for years. When Maya was accepted to Westbrook Academy, I saw her picture and I knew. She looks exactly like Marcus did at her age. I ran a background check, traced Grace's movements, and confirmed what I'd always suspected. Maya is a Whitmore by blood. Brandon grabbed the document, scanning it desperately. His hands were shaking. This doesn't prove anything, he said. A background check isn't a DNA test. No, Grace agreed. It isn't, but we can arrange one. Right here, right now. Are you willing to provide a sample, Mr. Whitmore? Brandon looked trapped, terrified. For the first time in his life, he was facing a situation his money couldn't buy his way out of. I need to call my father, he stammered. Your father, Grace said, and her voice turned to ice, is exactly who we're going to call. But first, there's more you need to hear. I could have stayed hidden forever, Grace said. I had a new life, a new identity. I was safe. But 18 years ago, I made a promise to myself. A promise that when Maya was old enough, when she was strong enough, I would come back. I would reclaim what was stolen, and I would make the Whitmores answer for what they did. Maya found her voice. That's why you took the job at their house. That's why you've been working there for years. You were gathering evidence. Grace nodded. The Whitmores are careful. They don't keep incriminating documents in places where they can be found. But they talk. They argue. They make phone calls, assuming the help isn't listening. For 3 years, I've been invisible in their house, and I've learned things that could destroy their empire. Brandon was sweating now. What kinds of things? Your father, Brandon Marcus Whitmore II, has continued the family tradition. Whitmore Industries' success isn't built on innovation. It's built on theft, stolen patents, suppressed competitors, and when necessary. Grace paused. Accidents. You're lying. I have recordings, documents, photographs. 3 years of evidence that your family has been committing corporate espionage, fraud, and possibly worse. Grace leaned forward. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Throughout this entire revelation, Maya had sat in silence, her world crumbling and rebuilding around her. Her mother wasn't who she thought she was. Her father wasn't dead. Her tormentor was her family. Everything she believed about her life was a lie. But, slowly, beneath the shock and confusion, Maya felt something else stirring. Anger. Not just at the Whitmores for what they'd done. Not just at her mother for keeping secrets. But at the injustice of it all. Her grandfather, her biological grandfather, had been murdered for his inventions. His legacy had been erased. His family had been forced into hiding. And the people responsible had prospered, generation after generation, building their empire on stolen foundations. What do you want, Mama? Maya asked quietly. What's the endgame here? Grace looked at her daughter with a mixture of love and pride. That's not my decision alone anymore, baby. You're part of this now. You're a Whitmore by blood, whether you like it or not. You have a claim to that legacy. I don't want their money. This isn't about money. Grace's voice was fierce. This is about justice. This is about your great-grandfather's name. This is about making sure the world knows what really happened. Maya considered this. She thought about the weeks of harassment, the hacked emails, the daily humiliations. She thought about Marcus, whoever he was, wherever he was, the man who had abandoned her mother, who had chosen his family's crimes over love. She thought about Brandon, sitting across from her now, pale and sweating, his entire worldview collapsing. And she made a decision. I want to meet him, Maya said. Marcus Whitmore, my father. I want to look him in the eye and ask him why. Grace nodded slowly. That can be arranged. Brandon made a strangled sound. You can't just. My grandfather is a powerful man. He won't see you. He'll have security remove you before you get within 100 feet. Actually, Principal Wright said, reaching for his phone, I think he'll be very interested in this meeting, especially when I tell him who's requesting it. He dialed a number. The room held its breath. Marcus? It's Thomas. Yes. I know it's been a while. Listen, I need you to come to my office, Westbrook Academy. Yes, right now. There's someone here you need to see. A pause. Let's just say, Grace has come home, and she's brought your daughter. He hung up. He's on his way, Principal Wright said. Should be here within the hour. His helicopter's already in the air. Brandon looked like he might faint. You called my grandfather. You actually called him. I called your grandfather, Thomas confirmed. And when he arrives, we're going to have a very long conversation about legacy, justice, and what the Whitmore family owes the Johnson family. Grace stood. Before he arrives, there's something else you should see. Both of you. She walked to Principal Wright's window, which overlooked the school's grand entrance. A black SUV was pulling up, different from the usual student vehicles. This one had government plates. Who is that? Brandon demanded. That, Grace said with grim satisfaction, is the FBI. They've been investigating Whitmore Industries for 2 years, based on anonymous tips. Tips I've been providing. She turned back to face the room. You see, Brandon, I didn't just come here to reclaim what was stolen. I came here to burn your family's empire to the ground. The hour that followed was chaos. FBI agents swarmed Westbrook Academy's administration building. Setting up in an adjacent conference room, Brandon was separated from the group, questioned by stern-faced agents about his father's business dealings. He answered with increasing panic, claiming ignorance of everything. Principal Wright coordinated the logistical nightmare with the calm efficiency of a man who had prepared for this day. And Grace and Maya waited in the principal's office, mother and daughter, together but separated by 18 years of secrets. I'm sorry, Grace said finally. I should have told you, years ago. I should have told you everything. Maya didn't respond for a long moment. Then, why didn't you? Because I wanted you to have a normal life. A childhood unburdened by our family's history. I wanted you to succeed or fail on your own merits. Not because of who your father was. Grace's voice cracked. I wanted to protect you, but all I did was keep you ignorant of who you really are. Who am I? Mama? Really? Am I Maya Johnson, the scholarship student? Or am I Maya Whitmore, heir to a stolen fortune? You're whoever you choose to be, baby. The name doesn't matter. The blood doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with the life you've been given. Before Maya could respond, the door opened. Marcus Whitmore, I stood in the entrance. He was in his 70s now, silver-haired and dignified, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Grace's annual salary as a maid, But his eyes were the same. Sharp, calculating, dangerous. And when those eyes fell on Grace, something flickered in their depths, something that might have been pain. "Grace," he breathed. "My God. It's really you." "Hello, Marcus." Grace's voice was ice. "It's been a long time." He stepped into the room, his gaze moving from Grace to Maya. And when he saw Maya, when he really saw her, he stopped dead. "She's..." His voice failed him. "She looks just like you," Grace finished. "At that age." "Yes. Meet your daughter, Marcus. Meet Maya." Maya rose slowly from her chair. She faced the man who was her biological father, the man who had chosen wealth over love, family over justice. "So you're him," she said flatly, "the great Marcus Whitmore." Marcus seemed to collect himself. "I didn't know. Grace, I swear to you, I didn't know you were pregnant when you left. If you had what?" Grace cut him off. "Chased after me? Abandoned your family's empire? Told the truth about my father?" She laughed bitterly. "We both know that's not who you are, Marcus. I was young, scared. My family put pressure on me. Your family murdered my father, and you helped them cover it up." Marcus flinched, as if struck. "That's not. I never knew for certain what happened to William. There were rumors, yes, but rumors," Grace repeated. "Your father had my father killed. And you call them rumors?" The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Maya watched this exchange with growing horror. This was her father. This weak, compromised man who had chosen complicity over courage. This was the blood running through her veins. "I don't care about your excuses," Maya said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I don't care about your guilt or your justifications. I want to know one thing. What are you going to do about it now?" Marcus turned to face his daughter, really face her for the first time. "What do you mean?" "The FBI is in the building. They have evidence going back decades. Your family's crimes are about to be exposed. So the question is, are you going to keep hiding behind money and power, or are you finally going to tell the truth?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, something shifted in his expression. The calculation gave way to something else, something that might have been exhaustion or relief. "I've been waiting," he said quietly. "For 18 years, I've been waiting for this moment, waiting for someone to force my hand. Maybe this is the universe's way of giving me a second chance." "What are you saying?" Grace demanded. Marcus Whitmore III, patriarch of one of America's wealthiest families, sat down heavily in a chair. "I'm saying I'm tired, Grace. I'm tired of carrying the weight of what my father did, what I helped him cover up. I'm tired of looking in the mirror and seeing a monster." He took a shaky breath. "I'll cooperate with the FBI. And I'll make sure William Ellis Johnson's name is restored to its rightful place in history." Grace stared at him, searching for the lie, the angle, the manipulation. She found only an old man, broken by decades of guilt. "Why now?" she asked. "After all these years, why would you suddenly grow a conscience?" Marcus looked at Maya. "Because now I have something to live up to. A daughter I never knew existed. A chance to be something other than what my father made me." His eyes filled with tears. "I can't undo the past, Grace. But maybe I can help build a better future. For our daughter, for William's memory, for whatever's left of my soul." Over the next several hours, Marcus Whitmore I gave the FBI his full confession. He detailed how his father had manipulated William Ellis Johnson, how the partnership had been structured to ensure the Whitmores could seize control at any time. How, when William discovered the betrayal and threatened to go public, certain measures had been taken. He didn't know the exact details of William's death. His father had kept him insulated from the worst of it, but he knew enough to connect the dots, enough to damn his own family. The patents, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Every major innovation Whitmore Industries has produced for the last 40 years was based on William's original work. We built our empire on a stolen foundation. The FBI agents recorded everything, took notes, asked follow-up questions. And in the adjacent room, Grace and Maya listened through a speaker Principal Wright had quietly activated. He's really doing it, Maya said in wonder. He's actually telling the truth. Yes. Grace's voice was thick with emotion. After all these years, he's finally doing the right thing. Does this change how you feel about him? Grace considered the question carefully. It doesn't erase what he did. It doesn't bring my father back. But... She paused. It takes courage to confess. To face consequences. Maybe there's something in Marcus worth saving after all. By evening, Westbrook Academy had become a media circus. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions at anyone entering or leaving the building. Social media exploded with speculation about what was happening inside. Brandon Whitmore III had been released after questioning, but he looked like a shell of his former self. His family's fortune, his identity, his entire sense of self, all of it was crumbling. This is your fault. He spat at Maya as they passed in the hallway. You and your mother destroyed everything. Maya stopped. She could have responded with anger, could have reminded him of everything he'd done to her over the past weeks. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Pity. Brandon, she said quietly, I didn't destroy your family. Your family destroyed itself a long time ago. I just held up a mirror. Brandon's face contorted with rage, then collapsed into something like grief. He turned and walked away without another word. That night, Grace and Maya returned to their small apartment. They sat together on the worn couch, two women bound by blood and secrets and an uncertain future. What happens now? Maya asked. Now. Grace sighed. Now we wait. The investigation will take months, maybe years. There will be trials. Testimony, media, attention. She looked at her daughter. Your life is about to change, baby. I'm not sure it will ever go back to normal. What about you? I've been in hiding for 18 years. I'm tired of running. Whatever comes next, I'm going to face it head on. Maya leaned against her mother, feeling like a child again. Mama, do you think Grandpa William would be proud of what we did today? Grace's arm wrapped around her daughter. I think your grandfather would be proud of who you've become, Maya. A brilliant young woman who stands up for what's right, who doesn't back down from bullies, who asks hard questions and demands honest answers. She kissed Maya's forehead. That's his legacy, not patents or money. You. They sat in silence as darkness fell outside their window. Tomorrow would bring chaos, media scrutiny, difficult conversations, legal proceedings. But tonight, they had each other. And for the first time in 18 years, Grace Johnson felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Maya woke to the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly. She grabbed it, squinting at the screen. Dozens of notifications. Text messages from Casey Fitzgerald. Missed calls from unknown numbers. And one message that made her blood run cold. It was from Brandon Whitmore III. This isn't over. You think you've won? My family has resources you can't imagine. Whatever your mother has planned, we'll be ready. Enjoy your moment, scholarship girl, because I'm going to take everything from you. Maya stared at the message, her heart pounding. She thought the fight was over. She thought the truth had won. But as she looked at that message, she realized something. The Whitmores weren't defeated. They were cornered. And cornered animals were the most dangerous. The truth is out. Marcus Whitmore I has confessed. But Brandon's threat hangs in the air like a storm cloud. What will the Whitmore family do when their empire faces destruction? How will Maya and Grace protect themselves from powerful enemies with nothing left to lose? The explosion rocked the courthouse at exactly 9:47 a.m. Maya Johnson was 20 feet from the entrance when the blast wave knocked her off her feet, sending her tumbling across the marble plaza. Glass rained down like deadly confetti. Alarms screamed. People ran in every direction, their faces masks of terror. For a moment, Maya couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched ringing. She lay on the ground, staring up at the smoke-blackened sky, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Then her mother's face appeared above her. "Maya! Maya! Can you hear me?" Grace's voice cut through the ringing. Maya blinked, focused, nodded. "I'm okay," she managed. "I'm okay." But as she struggled to her feet, as she turned to look at the courthouse now burning behind her, she knew nothing was okay. Today was supposed to be the day Marcus Whitmore II faced a federal grand jury. Today was supposed to be the beginning of the end for the Whitmore empire. Instead, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous, because whoever had planted that bomb wasn't trying to destroy evidence or kill witnesses. They were sending a message, and Maya Johnson had received it loud and clear. The weeks following Marcus Whitmore's confession were chaos. Federal prosecutors worked around the clock to build their case. Whitmore Industries stock plummeted 30%. Marcus Whitmore II, Brandon's father, was arrested at his office. Perp walked in front of 100 cameras, his mugshot splashed across every news outlet in the country. And Grace Johnson's face was everywhere. "The maid who brought down a billionaire," one headline screamed. "Hidden heiress exposes corporate conspiracy," another proclaimed. "Bathroom cleaner to boardroom shakeup, the Grace Johnson story." Grace handled the attention with remarkable composure. She gave carefully controlled interviews, always steering the conversation back to her father's legacy, always emphasizing that this was about justice, not revenge. But privately, in the quiet moments when the cameras weren't rolling, Grace was scared. "They're not going to let this go," she told Principal Wright during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "The Whitmores have been operating outside the law for decades. They have connections everywhere: politicians, judges, law enforcement. They're going to fight back." "That's why we have federal protection," Thomas reminded her. "The FBI is taking this very seriously. Protection didn't save my father." Meanwhile, was navigating her own storm. Westbrook Academy had become unbearable. Half the students treated her like a celebrity, desperate to be associated with the girl who'd brought down the mighty Whitmores. The other half viewed her as a traitor, a climber, someone who'd betrayed her own blood for attention. Brandon Whitmore III had been suspended pending the investigation. But his allies remained. They made Maya's life miserable in countless small ways: books going missing, cruel notes appearing in her locker, whispered conversations that stopped whenever she approached. Casey Fitzgerald remained loyal, but even she admitted things were difficult. "People are scared," Casey explained during one of their library study sessions. "The Whitmores have been running this town for generations. Everyone has some connection to them: jobs, investments, favors. If the family goes down, a lot of people go down with them. So, I'm supposed to feel sorry for people who benefited from stolen money? No, but you should understand why they're afraid." Maya did understand. Fear was a powerful motivator. It made people do terrible things. She just hadn't realized how terrible until the death threats started. The first letter arrived at their apartment 3 days after Marcus Whitmore II's arrest. It was typed on plain white paper, with no return address, no identifying marks. "You should have stayed hidden, Grace. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Just like your father." Grace's face went white when she read it. She called the FBI immediately. More letters followed. Then emails from anonymous accounts. Then phone calls in the middle of the night, heavy breathing, long silences, then a single whispered word: "Soon." The FBI increased security. Armed agents took positions outside their apartment building. Maya and Grace were given panic buttons, emergency protocols, evacuation plans. But the threats kept coming. "They're trying to scare us," Grace told Maya, "trying to make us back down. Is it working?" Grace's jaw set. Not a chance. But Maya saw the fear in her mother's eyes. The way she checked every lock twice. The way she jumped at unexpected sounds. The way she held Maya a little tighter every night. This was war, and the enemy had resources they couldn't imagine. 3 weeks after the threats began, Marcus Whitmore, I was scheduled to testify before the grand jury. His testimony would be devastating. He was prepared to provide detailed accounts of corporate crimes spanning 4 decades: fraud, theft, bribery, and yes, even the suspicious circumstances surrounding William Ellis Johnson's death. The night before his testimony, Marcus called Grace. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said, his voice raspy with age and exhaustion. "I know I can never undo what my family did to yours. But I want you to know I'm doing this for William. And for you, and for the daughter I never knew." "Just tell the truth, Marcus," Grace replied. "That's all I've ever wanted." "I will, I promise." The courthouse bomb detonated at 9:47 a.m., just as Marcus Whitmore I's motorcade was approaching the entrance. The explosion was precisely targeted. It killed Marcus instantly, along with 3 federal marshals and 2 FBI agents. A dozen bystanders were injured. The entrance to the courthouse was destroyed. Maya and Grace, who had arrived separately and earlier, survived by pure luck. "He's dead," Grace whispered, as they huddled in the aftermath, surrounded by sirens and chaos. "Marcus is dead." Maya held her mother close. "I'm so sorry, Mama. They killed him. They killed him to stop his testimony." Grace's voice hardened. "But they made a mistake." "What do you mean?" Grace looked at her daughter with fierce determination. "Marcus isn't the only one who knows the truth. I know it too. Everything he was going to say, I have documentation, recordings, evidence." She took a shaky breath. "They thought they could silence him, but all they did was make me angry." The explosion changed everything. What had been a straightforward corruption case became a federal terrorism investigation. Resources poured in from every agency. The media coverage intensified tenfold. And Grace Johnson made a decision. She called a press conference for that evening. "Are you sure about this?" Principal Wright asked, his face lined with worry. "After what happened to Marcus." "That's exactly why I have to do this," Grace replied. "They want us to be afraid. They want us to back down. But I've been hiding for 18 years, Thomas. I'm done hiding." Maya stood beside her mother. "I'm testifying too." "Maya, no. I'm 18 in 3 months, Mama. Old enough to make my own choices. And I choose to stand with you." Maya's voice was steady. "If we let them scare us into silence, they win. Everything Grandpa William built, everything you sacrificed, everything we've fought for, it all means nothing if we give up now." Grace looked at her daughter, this fierce, brilliant young woman who had inherited the best of both her families. "Together, then," Grace said. "Together." The press conference was held at the federal building in downtown Westbrook. Hundreds of journalists packed the room. Millions more watched via live stream. It was the most anticipated public statement since the bombing. Grace approached the podium with Maya at her side. "This morning," she began, "Marcus Whitmore I was murdered. He was killed because he was about to tell the truth, because he was going to expose decades of corporate crimes committed by his own family." She paused. "The people responsible for his death thought they could silence him. They thought they could scare me into hiding. They were wrong." She looked directly into the cameras. "My name is Grace Johnson. My father was William Ellis Johnson, the true inventor behind Whitmore Industries. 42 years ago, he was murdered to steal his life's work. Today, I'm here to tell his story, to tell the truth, and to ensure that his name is finally restored to its rightful place in history." What followed was an hour of explosive testimony. Grace walked through the evidence, piece by piece. The original partnership agreements, the forged documents, the suspicious circumstances of her father's death, the decades of cover-ups and crimes. She named names, provided dates, showed documents on the massive screen behind her. And when she finished, when the room sat in stunned silence, Maya stepped forward. "My name is Maya Johnson, but I'm also Maya Whitmore, by blood, if not by choice. Marcus Whitmore, I was my biological father, a man I never knew, a man who spent his life protecting his family's secrets." She took a breath. But he was also a man who, at the end, chose truth over lies, chose justice over comfort, chose to do the right thing, even though it cost him everything. Her voice cracked. "I didn't get to know him. I didn't get to ask him all the questions I have. But I know this. In the end, he tried to make things right. And I'm going to honor that choice by continuing what he started." She looked directly at the cameras, knowing Brandon was watching somewhere. "To the people responsible for the bombing, to the people who think they can silence us with threats and violence, you're wrong. You've always been wrong. The truth is coming. And nothing you do can stop it." The press conference triggered a cascade of events. Within 24 hours, Marcus Whitmore II was charged with additional counts, including conspiracy to commit murder. His attorneys immediately blamed rogue elements within the organization, but the evidence told a different story. Brandon Whitmore III was brought in for questioning again. This time, he wasn't released. Investigators had found communications between Brandon and several individuals connected to the bombing. He claimed ignorance, claimed he'd been manipulated, claimed he was just a teenager caught up in his family's mess. The FBI wasn't convinced. He knew, the lead investigator told Grace privately. "We can't prove he planned the bombing, but he knew it was going to happen. He warned certain friends to stay away from the courthouse that morning." Grace felt sick. This was the boy who had bullied her daughter. The boy who had slapped Maya in front of the entire school. And all along, he'd been connected to something far darker. What happens to him now? He's being charged as an accessory. Given his age and the circumstances, he's looking at significant time. Grace nodded. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just exhaustion and sorrow for all the wasted potential. The trial of the century began 4 months later. Marcus Whitmore II sat at the defense table, flanked by the most expensive lawyers money could buy. The charges were staggering. Corporate fraud, patent theft, conspiracy to commit murder, domestic terrorism. Grace was the prosecution's star witness. She testified for 3 days, walking through the evidence with meticulous precision. The defense tried everything, attacking her credibility, questioning her motives, suggesting she'd fabricated evidence. Nothing worked. The documentation was too thorough, the recordings too clear, the pattern of crimes too obvious. And when Maya took the stand to testify about the harassment she'd endured, about Brandon's threats, about the culture of impunity that had allowed the Whitmores to believe they were above consequences, the jury listened with rapt attention. "I didn't choose to be born into this family," Maya said. "I didn't choose to have Whitmore blood running through my veins. But I can choose what I do with that legacy. And I choose to stand for truth, for justice, for the memory of a great-grandfather I never knew, who was killed because he tried to make the world a better place." The prosecution rested. The defense mounted its case. But it was hollow. Character witnesses who praised Marcus Whitmore II's philanthropy. Experts who questioned the validity of certain documents. Legal technicalities and procedural objections. None of it mattered. After 6 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Marcus Whitmore II was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. Brandon Whitmore III, tried separately as a juvenile, received 8 years in a juvenile detention facility with eligibility for parole at age 23. The financial penalties were staggering. Whitmore Industries was forced to pay restitution in the billions. Assets were seized. The company's board was replaced. A new CEO was appointed, someone with no connection to the Whitmore family, and William Ellis Johnson was finally recognized. His name was added to every patent his work had inspired. The Whitmore Science Wing at Westbrook Academy was renamed the William Ellis Johnson Science Center. A foundation was established in his memory, providing scholarships to underprivileged students pursuing careers in renewable energy. Grace wept when she saw the dedication plaque. "He would have loved this," she whispered to Maya as they stood in the newly renamed center. "All he ever wanted was to make a difference, to help the world. He did, Mama. Through you, through his legacy, through everything that's happening now." 1 year after the bombing, Grace Johnson stood on the stage of a packed auditorium. She was no longer wearing a maid's uniform. Instead, she wore a sharp business suit, her hair styled professionally, her posture confident and commanding. She was about to deliver the keynote address at the National Renewable Energy Conference. "When my father invented his solar technology 40 years ago," she began, "he dreamed of a world powered by clean energy. A world where the sun itself would light our homes, fuel our vehicles, power our cities. That dream was stolen from him, but dreams have a way of surviving, of finding new champions, of refusing to die." She paused, looking out at the thousands of faces watching her. "Today, I'm proud to announce the launch of the William Ellis Johnson Institute for Clean Energy. With the support of our partners, we will be funding research, providing scholarships, and developing technologies that would make my father proud." His dream didn't die with him. It just took 40 years to find its voice again. The audience erupted in applause. Maya, sitting in the front row, felt tears streaming down her face. Her mother, this incredible woman who had survived so much, was finally living her truth. No more hiding, no more pretending, just Grace Johnson, honoring her father's legacy and building a future worth inheriting. 3 months later, Maya Johnson stood at the podium of Westbrook Academy's graduation ceremony. She had been selected as class valedictorian not because of her family name, but because of her perfect grades, her groundbreaking science fair projects, and her tireless work ethic. The auditorium was packed. Her mother sat in the front row, tears already forming. Principal Wright was on stage, beaming with pride. 2 years ago, Maya began, "I walked through the gates of this school as a scholarship student. I was told I didn't belong here. That I was an outsider. That no matter how hard I worked, I would never truly be one of you." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "I was told those things by people who believe that worth is determined by wealth, that value is measured in dollars, that some people are simply born better than others." She shook her head. "They were wrong. About all of it. Real worth comes from what you do, not what you have. From how you treat people, not how much power you wield over them. From the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it costs you everything." She looked at her classmates, some who had been cruel, some who had been kind, all of whom had watched her journey from outcast to valedictorian. "I've learned that secrets always come out, that justice always arrives, even if it takes decades, and that the people who try to tear you down are always afraid of what you might become if they let you rise." She smiled, her eyes finding her mother's. "So to anyone out there who's been told they don't belong, to anyone who's been bullied, harassed, humiliated, or dismissed because of where they come from, to anyone who's been made to feel small by people who are terrified of your potential, don't give up. Don't stop fighting. Don't let them win. Because your moment is coming. Your truth will be heard. And when it is, nothing can stop you." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the ceremony, Maya found a stack of letters waiting for her in the principal's office. They were from other students, other scholarship kids, other people who had been bullied, harassed, and made to feel like they didn't belong. "Your story gave me courage. Because of you, I reported my bully. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fight. Thank you for showing us what strength looks like." Maya read each one, her heart swelling with each word. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't wanted to become a symbol. But if her story could help others, could inspire others to keep fighting when everything seemed hopeless, then maybe it had all been worth it. 5 years after the trial, Maya Johnson walked into a federal prison. She was 22 now, a recent graduate of MIT, with a degree in renewable energy engineering. She joined her mother at the William Ellis Johnson Institute, working to turn her great-grandfather's dreams into reality. But today, she had a different purpose. Brandon Whitmore III sat on the other side of the glass partition. He was 23, freshly released from juvenile detention, looking nothing like the arrogant bully who had tormented her years ago. His face was thin, his eyes were haunted. Prison had changed him in ways Maya couldn't fully comprehend. "Why did you come?" Brandon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya considered the question. She'd asked herself the same thing 100 times. "Because I needed to see you," she finally said. "Because despite everything, you're still my family." Brandon flinched. "I don't deserve your—" "This isn't about what you deserve, it's about what I need." Maya leaned forward. "I need to know if you've changed. If you understand what happened. If you're capable of becoming something other than what your family made you." Brandon was silent for a long moment. "I've had 5 years to think," he said finally. 5 years to face what I did. What my family did. What we took from you." His voice cracked. "I was raised to believe we were better. That money made us special. That people like you were beneath us." He shook his head. "I was so wrong. Maya, about everything. You're worth 10 of me. 100. You and your mother, you had every reason to give up, to hide, to let fear win. But you didn't. You fought, and you won. This isn't about winning. No. It's about justice, about truth, about making things right." He looked at her with something approaching respect. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to atone for what I did. I know I can never make up for it, but I have to try." Maya studied him for a long moment. "There's a program," she said. "Through the Institute, we mentor at-risk youth, kids from privileged backgrounds who are at risk of going down the same path you did. Kids who need to learn that wealth doesn't make you worthy, and cruelty doesn't make you strong." Brandon's eyes widened. "You want me to?" "I want you to tell your story, to show them what happens when you choose the wrong path. And maybe, if you're serious about changing, you can help prevent others from making your mistakes." It was more than Brandon deserved. They both knew it, but Maya had learned something in the years since that fateful day at Westbrook Academy. Something her mother had tried to tell her from the beginning. Justice wasn't about punishment. It was about restoration, about healing, about building a world where everyone had a chance to become their best selves, even the ones who had been your enemies. 1 year later, Maya stood before a crowd of thousands. Behind her rose the newly completed William Ellis Johnson Center for Clean Energy, a state-of-the-art research facility that would transform renewable energy for generations to come. Grace stood beside her, tears streaming freely down her face. 43 years ago, Maya said into the microphone, "My great-grandfather had a dream of clean energy for all. That dream was stolen from him, hidden away. Almost forgotten." She gestured to the gleaming building behind her. "But dreams don't die easily. They wait. They endure. They find new champions to carry them forward." She smiled at her mother. "My mother kept this dream alive for 18 years. She sacrificed everything, her career, her identity, her safety, to ensure that one day the truth would be known." She turned back to the crowd. "Today, we honor William Ellis Johnson, not just with this building, but with the work it will do, the innovations it will create, the lives it will change." Her voice strengthened. "And we honor every person who has ever been told they don't belong. Every person who has been bullied, dismissed, underestimated. Every person who has fought against systems designed to keep them down. She raised her hand toward the sky. This is for all of you. This is proof that truth prevails, that justice arrives, that no matter how powerful your enemies, no matter how impossible the odds, the right side always wins in the end. The applause was thunderous. Grace embraced her daughter, both of them weeping with joy. And somewhere, watching the ceremony from the back of the crowd, Brandon Whitmore III felt something shift in his chest. It might have been hope. It might have been the first stirring of genuine change. But whatever it was, it felt like the beginning of something new. That evening, after the celebrations had ended, Maya and Grace sat together on the steps of the new center. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The building gleamed behind them, a monument to everything they'd fought for. Grace said softly, "My father. He would be so proud. Of you, Mama. He'd be proud of you." Grace shook her head. "Of both of us. Of what we did together." She looked at her daughter. "You know, when you were born, I made a promise. I promised that I would give you a better life than I had. That I would protect you from the ugliness of the world. You did, Mama." "No, I tried. But in the end, you faced that ugliness head on. You fought it. You conquered it." Grace's voice broke. "You became stronger than I ever was." Maya took her mother's hand. "I had a good teacher." They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, watching the stars emerge one by one. Behind them, the William Ellis Johnson Center for Clean Energy hummed with potential, with promise, with the dreams of a man who had died too soon, but whose legacy would live forever. And somewhere in that building, working late into the night, a young scholarship student was discovering a breakthrough that would change the world, just as William had dreamed, just as Grace had fought for, just as Maya would continue. The truth had won. Justice had been served. And a new chapter was just beginning. This story is dedicated to everyone who has been told they don't belong. You belong. You matter. And your moment is coming.